Matt Prater just keeps going and going. I know that there was a couple kicks he probably wouldn't have minded making in the preseason, but it seems like when the regular season starts, you just don't have to worry about it at all.
He certainly had a career track record of consistency, and there's some things in the preseason you're always trying to work through. And the one advantage that specialists get is most of those guys do get preseason reps. You kind of pick your poison with the offense and defensive players or starters, but the specialists usually get enough game reps to where they're knocking that rust off and hopefully ready to go week one.
You see extra buy-in than usual in your punt cover unit. It seems like guys are flying down the field, whether it's Boyd or Christian Matthew, that entire unit.
I wouldn't say extra buy-in. I mean, those guys are competitive with each other, and you're trying to win and do the right thing and do your job against the opponent, but at the same time, those guys all want to make the play. And when you get enough guys out there that are kind of racing to the ball, generally speaking, you have good results. They got to play within the system, but they all want to be the guy making that tackle.
Is it rare to have a wide receiver with the kind of special teams mentality that Zach Pascal has in terms of coverage?
Rare is probably not the right word, but I would say it's uncommon. There's plenty of wideouts I've had that I've worked with, and the guys are good teams players. What differentiates Zach from some of those guys is he's a bigger body type, so he's involved in punt protection. He's kind of the inside guy on kickoff coverage, and a lot of times those wide receivers, even if they're contributors, they're more on the perimeter of the units, but he's got really good size and speed and a lot of position flex.
When you talked last week and asked about Nolan, you talked about the lights coming on and you see what happens. How would you generally evaluate his performance?
Yeah, I thought it was solid. There was two really good punts in the game. The first, in his direction as well, I thought was solid all day. Plus 50 didn't really get into that, so they were mostly field punts. But there was that first punt ended up being a 61-yard exchange of field position. That's really good. And there's a 53-yard fair catch. And if the ball's not in the air for a long time, that's not happening. So I thought he had a pretty solid day.
What do you see as Matt's keys maybe to taking care of himself, his leg at this advanced time in his career and his age, given all that he does and the power he still has? How does he do it and keep it going for this long?
Well, I'd say as of right now, at the stage of his career, he knows what he needs to be ready for Sunday. And whereas maybe 10 years ago, I was coaching him 10 years ago, he might have hit 6, 7, 8 extra balls to make sure, if he was working on something. And he doesn't kick off 20 balls a week anymore. He knows what he needs to get ready on Sunday and kind of does that. And if there's something he's got to do, he'll do it. But otherwise, he knows what his workload needs to be throughout the week in order to perform on game day.
How different is the call when you're at the waning seconds in the game and you've got a punt return? Is it just a regular punt return, or is it you've got a special kind of play call, like blank band is on the field type kind of situation?
Yeah, don't want to get into too many schematics, but when you get at the end of that game, you don't really know what the opponent is going to do, right? There's 7 seconds left. So there are plays throughout the history of the game where there are some. I was with one team who had an offensive play called Octopus, and they basically were trying to burn 8 seconds off the clock by having the quarterback heave it up out of bounds and all those things. That's ambitious to say that's an 8-second play. You see teams do that with 4 seconds left, 5 seconds left, but 7's kind of in that gray area. They certainly could have gone for it there, and probably gotten it to the last. Hey, they decided to punt it, which we got to be ready for. But if Dortch lets that ball go, right? Like, hey, don't catch it inside the whatever yard line. Well, if he does that, the game's over. They're going to pick it up, and the game's over. So you have to return it, in that situation if the ball's in play. But there are different things that teams do in those situations. We got into it really early in the season.
What kind of returner is Greg?
I mean, there's a lot of words that come to mind, but, I think he's done a decent job with his decision-making. His handling of the ball is usually on point. He's a quick player, and he plays bigger than what he is, but, the skill set isn't that of a guy like Brian Mitchell, right, back in the day, who's, running back, thicker guy, Cordarrelle Patterson, like those bigger guys. That's not a skill set, so he's got to play to who he is. And for the most part, he does that most of the time.
But if he gets an alley or lane, he's probably gone, right? If he could find that alley with that speed.
You hope. I mean, we've got to create those that air for him.
Glad to see it was very clean game penalty-wise on special teams. I think there was the one on Buda in the neutral zone was declined, but overall, what was your assessment of that?
Yeah, we try to stay penalty-free. I mean, week one, it's always faster than what it is in practice. It's always faster than what it is in the preseason. I'll take that kind of penalty performance over some other ones I've been a part of.
As someone who's definitely seen it happen, how do you see a player elevate himself from a special teams contributor and a standout to a bigger role on offense or defense?
I don't know that there's a common thread to it. I would say that, and this is something I convey to all the young players. When you first get in this league, I don't pretend that every player grew up as a 7-year-old dreaming about playing the R3 on kickoff coverage, right? Like, they all want to score touchdowns. They all want to sack people. They all want to throw the ball. That's kind of where their heart is. But you have to hang around long enough in this league to get those opportunities. And when you cover kicks and be a part of the return game, block for people, you're kind of buying yourself time in order to develop. There are a lot of players that come in this league. Let's take running back, for example. I think there's a lot of guys that can run the ball in this league. The problem is if you get stuck, kind of third, fourth in the depth chart and you're not contributing as a special teams player, they're going to find somebody who will. And if you can put yourself in a position to where you hang around, develop, work with the coaches, get more comfortable in schemes, at some point you're going to get your break because, there's going to be a guy nicked here or there, and then it's what you do with that opportunity. So that's about as good as I could describe it.
With special teams, especially, some of the rules changed as of late. With a game like last night and how it ended, special teams play, I mean, watching that, is there any just sort of pride as what you do, seeing that around the league and showing people what special teams can really do?
Well, special teams coaches are in unique positions. So let's take the end result of that game last night and say it was an offensive play, right? And the guy throws a 70-yard bomb, and you're asking the offensive coordinator, how great was that? Then the defensive coordinator comes, sits up here, and you ask that same question. He's saying, what are you thinking, right? So you look through it through both lenses, and you see the impact that you can have on a game, but at the same time, you've got to look at the flip side of it to prevent those things. It was a heck of a play by that player, and there are things that, happened on that play that, are a result of coaching, and there's things that happen on that play that are a result of maybe some younger players not making the right decision in certain aspects of it. So when plays like that happen around the league, it's certainly an opportunity for us as coaches to show, here's why this play happened, here's what this team did good or bad, there's what that team did good or bad. But, there's a validation on the outside part of it because those are the plays that get the attention, right? It's a walk-off touchdown. It's a long return. But there are other plays that happen throughout a season or throughout a game that maybe it's not quite as noticeable, but they're impact plays. So we try to educate our guys on both aspects of those.
How great is it to see a guy like Dennis start for you and then now get to start for the defense?
Well, I think that's the way that you want it to happen. Somebody asked me this a couple of years ago here, and it's like, as as an organization, I think every organization's goal would be to have young guys come in, develop into offensive, defensive players, and ascend into roles, whether they're undrafted, drafted, whatever. I mean, that's kind of what keeps things going. You don't want to, get so old of a team to where, there's not any young guys doing those things. So with Dennis specifically, yeah, he played a big role for us the last few years in the kicking game. He's getting his chance on defense right now, and he's making the most of it. Really happy for him, but it's also really good for our other younger guys to see this is what this dude did when he first got in the league. Here's how he impacted the game. He's hung around long enough to get those opportunities, and he's making some sizable contributions for us defensively.